Hi, I'm Ray Madursky. I'm here for A Baker's Passion, and today I'm going to demonstrate the proper technique for creaming butter and sugar. You'll see a whole lot of people just throw some butter into a bowl, throw sugar on it, and then beat it. And we really want to do this the right way because it's really important in the final structure of the texture in our cake. So what we're going to do is we're going to make my friend Jeff Schepers' pound cake. Okay, so what I wanted to do is spend 1 minute and just talk very briefly about getting organized for any recipe that you're going to bake. Even when you're cooking, it's really good to set what the French call the mise en place, the set place. And it's just organizing everything before you go through. So you should always start by reading your recipe top to bottom. Collecting everything utensil-wise and ingredient-wise that you're going to need. And then just organizing it. I always do everything by weight. So I weigh my sugar, my liquids, things like sour cream, which is in this particular recipe. I always weigh those things. So real important to get all of that done ahead of time. Then when you actually get going with making your recipe, it's going to be really easy to just grab things and put them together. Okay, so I've started buttering my pan, and for this recipe we're going to use a tube pan, and I like using just soft butter. And then we're going to use some all-purpose flour. What I like to do is I actually put it across the core of the tube pan, let it run down, and then twirl it like this. And then bring it along the sides and tap it as you go. Okay, so I've got my flour coating the entire pan. Now we're going to work on creaming the actual ingredients, the butter and the sugar. But it's also important, this technique, when you're making cookies. Some pastry doughs, for example, too, are made with the mixer. You beat the butter and then you put in the sugar. So it's real important to learn how to do this and to do it properly. Okay? Okay, so I've got my 8 ounces of room temperature butter into the mixing bowl. Now I'm going to set the mixer onto medium-high speed, and I'm going to beat the butter for about 4 or 5 minutes. 2 or 3 times scrape the bowl down with a simple spatula, simply because we want to really make sure the butter is evenly creamed. Okay, so I'm going to give the bowl the first scraping. Be sure I'm using the flat paddle, so be sure to scrape the paddle also. Okay, that looks great. Okay, so here's what the butter should look like. Very pale in color, very soft, and we're now ready to add the sugar. So here goes. Here's my sugar for this recipe that's been weighed at 16 ounces of sugar, 2 cups, and I'm going to add it very, very slowly. Okay, here's what our butter and sugar mixture should look like at this point. We're going to add the vanilla. I make my own vanilla with cognac and vanilla beans, and I love using it because it's so wonderful. What we're going to do is add 6 eggs, and we are going to add the eggs one at a time. My suggestion when adding eggs, I always leave my eggs at room temperature. I hardly ever refrigerate eggs except maybe in the hottest part of the summer. So you really do want to make sure you're not going to throw a funky egg into a beautiful batter like this and then ruin it. So I always crack my eggs into a bowl, and then we'll put them into the batter one at a time with the mixer on low speed. Okay, so with the mixer on low speed, we're going to begin adding our eggs one at a time. So I've broken this egg into a bowl, and then it's really easy to just get it into the batter. Now the important thing here is that you allow that egg to become fully incorporated into the sugar mixture before adding the next egg. Okay, I've got my last egg here, and I'm going to be adding it. Okay, now I'm just going to lift the bowl up and let you see. The batter looks really soft and creamy, and it almost looks like it's going to curdle, where the butter component fat might separate out. It's not going to. And once we start adding the dry ingredients, it really comes together. But if you see this as you're making this recipe, don't freak out and think, oh, I did something wrong. The egg component's pretty high, and even though this is called a pound cake, it's not really a true pound cake. It's a variation, and what it is, though, is a butter cake. And of all the butter cake recipes I've ever had, this is really one of my very favorites. It's right up there at the top. So now I'm going to begin adding about 1/3 of the flour. Now we have sour cream and flour to add. You begin with dry ingredients. You add half of the liquid sour cream in this recipe. Then you add the next part, half of the remaining flour. Then you put the remaining sour cream. Then the last part of the flour, the last third of the flour it'll be. And you don't have to measure anything. You just do it by eye. Kind of wing it. So you're going to put in about 1/3 of the dry ingredients. Then you're going to add half the liquid, half of the remaining dry, the remaining half of the liquid, and then we're going to just have this beautiful batter, okay? Alright, so I've put about 1/3 of the flour into the plastic container, and I'm going to use the spoon to just add this to the mixer. You want to keep your mixer on the lowest possible speed for doing this, so you don't wind up with the flour all over your kitchen. Okay, alright, I've got half of the dry ingredients. Now I will scrape the bowl. Now I will add half of the sour cream. And again, all we're doing is eyeballing. So I'm going to let the sour cream incorporate, then I'm going to add the next part of the flour. Okay, I'm going to add the remainder of our sour cream. Scraping out the measuring cup because I want to get as much of the cream into the cake as I can. So there we go. Now we're going to add the final third of our flour. Okay, I'm now going to beat the batter for a couple of seconds on medium-high speed. Okay, and we're done, and we're now ready to get the batter into the cake pan. Okay, here's the finished batter for Jeff's pound cake. Great, wonderful recipe, versatile, easy to do. And now I'm just going to place the batter in as even a layer as you can get into the cake pan that's been prepared with butter and flour. Alright, now try to just as best you can smooth the top of the cake. And it goes into the center of a 350 degree oven for 60 to 65 minutes. Okay, so 5 minutes has passed. I'm going to place a rack over the cake pan, turn it, and look at that, guys. It is a beauty. Now you can finish this cake any number of ways. You can make a very simple frosting, American style, but you've put such effort into making this beautiful butter cake. I suggest, and what I'm going to do, is frost it, but with a creme anglaise buttercream. It's the easiest of all the classical cooked buttercreams to make. So check out the video, and I'll see you later in that video frosting this cake with a creme anglaise buttercream. Thank you, and for A Baker's Passion, I'm Ray Madursky. Take care.